sending the stadium into an eruption. There are matches on the WTA calendar that carry the quiet hum of a routine result waiting to happen, and then there are matches that arrive already wrapped in storyline, stakes, and spectacle, and the third-round meeting between Alexandra Eala of the Philippines and Amanda Anisimova of the United States belongs firmly to the second category, because it is a first-time career meeting between a rocketing 21-year-old debutante seed and a battle-tested 24-year-old two-time major finalist. Staged on the hard courts of the Lindner Family Tennis Center in Mason, Ohio, and it has become, by common agreement among tour writers, the first true marquee clash of the 2026 Cincinnati Open. This is the kind of match that decides more than just who advances to the fourth round. For Eala, it's a data point in the biggest, most important month of her career. For Anisimova, it's another rung on the long climb back toward the game she played in the second half of 2025, when she reached back-to-back Grand Slam finals. So let's walk through everything worth knowing before the two players step onto the court. Eala and Anisimova have never played each other on the WTA Tour, so there is no history to lean on, no head-to-head record to parse for patterns, no prior scoreline to reference for confidence or caution. This match will be written entirely from scratch, in real time, in front of a Cincinnati crowd that has increasingly become a home game for Eala given the wave of Filipino and Filipino-American support that has followed her across the North American hardcourt swing this summer. What we do have instead is form, momentum, and matchup logic, and on paper this is about as intriguing a stylistic collision as the third round of a WTA 1000 event can produce. Eala's Cincinnati campaign began with the best possible platform, a first round bye as the tournament's 17th seed, the highest seeding of her career at a WTA event, which itself tells part of the story of her 2026 season, a run that has included a historic Wimbledon appearance, a maiden WTA Tour title at the Mubadala DC Open on August 3rd, a win that came at the expense of world number 3 Jessica Pegula and made her the first Filipina player ever to crack the world's top 20, and a run to the fourth round in Toronto before falling to Belinda Bencic. Her second-round match against Romania's Elena Gabriela Ruse looked, for a set and a half, like exactly the kind of routine step an informed top 20 player should take. After dropping her opening service game, Eala reeled off 6 straight games to close out the first set 6-1, riding a scorching return game that saw her win 71% of points on Ruse's first serve and 78% on the second. She carried that momentum directly into the second set, racing to a 3-0 lead before rain and lightning suspended play at the Lindner Family Tennis Center. Ruse, who had been receiving treatment on her right foot during the delay, opted not to return to the court once play was set to resume, handing Eala a 6-1, 3-0 retirement victory. It wasn't the ending anyone wanted, least of all Eala, who had been playing some of the cleanest tennis of the tournament to that point, but the result is the result, and the manner of the win, dominant, controlled, built on elite return numbers, will have done plenty for her confidence heading into a much sterner test. On the other side of the draw, Anisimova needed just 2 comfortable sets to see off Turkish rising star Zeynep Sönmez, winning 6-2, 6-3 in a match that was itself interrupted for roughly an hour by the same rain system that later hit Eala's court. The 9th seed and world number 10 didn't face significant resistance, and the straight-set scoreline continues a pattern for Anisimova this season. When her game is on, she can be nearly unplayable for stretches, flattening out her ground strokes and taking time away from opponents before they can find any rhythm. This meeting was projected well before the tournament even began. When the Cincinnati draw was released, tour analysts immediately flagged the 9th-seeded Anisimova and 17th-seeded Eala as a probable third-round collision, and both players duly delivered on that projection by winning their openers. The stakes extend beyond just this single match, too, because the winner is projected to face 6th seed and reigning Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova in the 4th round, a player who already holds a 2-0 record over Eala this season, having beaten her at both the Indian Wells Open 6-2, 6-0, and the Berlin Tennis Championships 6-2, 6-4. Beyond that, Eala's projected path, should she keep winning, includes a potential quarterfinal against Jessica Pegula, whom she beat in the DC Open final, a semi-final against Elena Rybakina, and a final against world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka. It's a brutal gauntlet, which is precisely why this third-round match against Anisimova is being treated as close to a must-win if Eala wants to build any real momentum through the draw. For Anisimova, advancing here would be an important marker in a season that, by her own recent standards, has been an inconsistent one. That on Eala's side of the ledger, she is 21 years old, from the Philippines, currently ranked world number 20, seeded 17th in Cincinnati, and plays left-handed, a detail that matters more than it might initially seem, as we'll get to. Her rise has been one of the most compelling storylines in tennis over the past 18 months. A product of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, she built her reputation as a junior Grand Slam champion before turning that promise into WTA-level results with startling speed, and the 2026 season has been transformative on nearly every front. A breakthrough Wimbledon run that captured global attention and cemented her as a genuine top 20 threat on grass as well as hard courts. Her maiden WTA Tour title at the Mubadala DC Open, won by defeating world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the final. Career-high 17th seed at Cincinnati in her tournament debut after withdrawing in 2025 with a shoulder injury, and 7 wins in her last 8 matches heading into this event, with her lone loss in that stretch coming against Belinda Bencic in the 4th round of the Canadian Open in Toronto, a tournament where her matches reportedly drew such passionate Filipino crowd support that fans nicknamed the venue Barangay Toronto. Her strengths are built around an aggressive lefty forehand that she uses to dictate rallies from all corners of the court, paired with a return game that has been statistically excellent throughout the tournament so far. Her lefty serve adds an awkward, natural angle that opponents unfamiliar with left-handed players often struggle to read, particularly out wide in the ad court, and she plays with an appetite for the big occasion that belies her age and ranking. Her run through the DC Open, beating a top 3 player in the final, is proof she doesn't shrink against elite competition. But there are legitimate question marks too. Consistency across best-of-3 matches against players who can match her power remains the central swing factor, and against players like Noskova who can out-hit her from the baseline, Eala has come up short twice this season already. The concern against Anisimova follows a similar shape. Can Eala's aggression hold up against an opponent who hits just as flat, just as hard, and with more physicality behind the ball? Anisimova, for her part, is 24 years old, American, currently ranked world number 10, seeded 9th in Cincinnati, plays right-handed with a two-handed backhand, and reached a career-high ranking of number 3 back in January 2026. Few players on tour carry a more remarkable personal narrative than she does. After bursting onto the scene as a teenager, reaching the French Open semifinals at just 17 in 2019 by beating Simona Halep, she stepped away from the sport in 2023 to prioritize her mental health, and her return has been one of the genuine feel-good stories in the sport, one she has said other players have cited as validation for prioritizing their own well-being. The results of that comeback speak for themselves. In 2025, Anisimova won her first 2 WTA 1000 titles at Doha and Beijing, reached the Wimbledon final, a brutal, one-sided 6-0, 6-0 loss to Iga Swiatek, and the US Open final, a far more competitive 6-3, 7-6, 3, loss to Aryna Sabalenka, and finished the year inside the world's top 5 for the first time in her career. But 2026 has been a rockier road. She parted ways with coach Hendrik Vleeschouwers in March after nearly 2 years together. A left wrist injury cost her roughly 2 months of the clay season, and she looked rusty on her return at the French Open, losing in the 3rd round. She could not replicate her run to the Queen's Club final from 2025, falling in the quarterfinals to Iva Jovic, and at Wimbledon she opened with straight set wins, showing some signs of finding her form again on the grass where she'd made the final 12 months earlier. Despite the inconsistency, Anisimova remains a top 10 player and a 2-time major finalist for a reason. She is capable of producing tennis that very few players on tour can live with when her characteristic flat, heavy ball striking is clicking, and on hard courts specifically, where her aggressive, low-margin game finds its truest home, she remains one of the most dangerous floaters in any draw. Her strengths include elite ball striking off both wings, exceptional depth and pace on flat ground strokes that rush opponents, proven big match composure, having already beaten Aryna Sabalenka at Wimbledon and pushed her to a tiebreak in a slam final, and a return game capable of neutralizing big serves. Her question marks are just as clear. Form and fitness have been the recurring theme of her season. The wrist injury, coaching change, and stop-start results mean she arrives at this match without the free-flowing confidence of her 2025 peak, and when her level dips even slightly, her low-margin game can become error-prone in a hurry. Laying the two side by side, Eala is 21 to Anisimova's 24. Ranked number 20 to Anisimova's number 10, seeded 17th to Anisimova's 9th, plays left-handed where Anisimova plays right-handed, and where Eala's signature 2026 result is a WTA title win over Jessica Pegula. Anisimova's headline achievement is reaching a career-high ranking of number 3. Eala's best slam result in this stretch is a fourth-round finish at the Canadian Open, while Anisimova's resume includes back-to-back Grand Slam finals at Wimbledon and the US Open in 2025. Eala arrives having won 7 of her last 8 matches, while Anisimova arrives off a clean straight sets win over Sanmez, and as established, the head-to-head between them reads 0-0, a truly blank slate heading into this contest. This is where the match gets genuinely fascinating from a tennis analysis perspective, because the two players' games overlap more than they contrast. Both players are baseline aggressors who like to take the ball early and flat. Neither is a natural counterpuncher or grinder, and both look to end points on their own terms rather than construct long, patient rallies. That stylistic overlap means this match is likely to be decided less by who can impose a game plan on a passive opponent, and more by who executes better under pressure, who serves more efficiently, and who wins the first strike battle on return games. The left-handed factor is a real, tangible variable here too. Anisimova has faced comparatively few high-level lefties on tour, and the mirror image nature of a left-handed serve and forehand can disrupt the patterns a right-hander is used to constructing, particularly out wide on break points. So expect Eala to lean on serving out wide in the ad court to open up her lefty forehand into the open court, a pattern that has worked for her against a number of opponents this season. The flip side of that coin is Anisimova's superior physicality and pace. When her ball striking is on, very few players on tour, Eala included, have the raw pace absorption to consistently redirect it, and her flat backhand in particular can rush shorter, less physically imposing opponents, with Eala at 21 still adding strength and court coverage relative to a more fully physically mature Anisimova. Return games will likely decide this match more than anything else. Eala's return numbers against Ruse, 71% of first-serve return points and 78% of second-serve return points, were extraordinary, even accounting for the level of opposition, and if she brings anything close to that return quality against Anisimova's serve, which, while effective, is not the American's biggest weapon, Eala gives herself a real chance to break serve multiple times per set. Conversely, Anisimova's own return game has been sharp all season and has been central to her biggest wins, including her upset of Sabalenka at Wimbledon last year. There's also an under-the-radar freshness factor worth flagging. Eala's win came via retirement, meaning she didn't have to grind through a full, physically taxing 3-set battle to reach this round, which could leave her fresher, both physically and mentally, than a player who had to fight through a complete match. It's a small edge, but in a WTA 1000 event where matches stack up quickly, freshness matters. A handful of other factors could tip the scales in either direction. Cincinnati has increasingly become a pseudo-home environment for Eala given the surge in Filipino diaspora support that has followed her across the US hardcourt swing this summer, echoing the Barangay Toronto atmosphere from the Canadian Open, and playing in front of a vocal, partisan crowd has visibly boosted her level this season, which could be a genuine factor in a tight, tense match against a higher-ranked opponent. If Anisimova is still searching for the free-flowing form that carried her to 2 Slam finals in 2025, this is exactly the kind of match, against a dangerous but slightly lower-ranked opponent, that can either kickstart a big run or expose lingering rust. Eala, meanwhile, has already beaten a top 3 player this season in a title match and has shown she doesn't wilt against elite competition. That mental framework, believing she belongs on this stage, could be the difference in the moments that matter most, like break points and tiebreaks. And finally, the weather deserves a mention. Rain has already disrupted both players' Cincinnati campaigns once, and another delay could shift momentum in unpredictable ways, particularly if one player is playing better than the other when a suspension hits. So, Can Eala win? Yes, and a compelling case can be made that she should be considered a live, credible threat rather than a plucky underdog making up the numbers. The rankings gap, number 10 versus number 20, and the resume gap, 2 Slam finals versus 1 WTA 500 title, both favor Anisimova on paper. And if the American is playing anywhere near her 2025 peak level, she is the more dangerous ball striker in this matchup and the more experienced closer in tight sets, and that has to be respected. But form is not just about ranking, it's about trajectory, and right now Eala's trajectory is pointed sharply upward while Anisimova's has been genuinely turbulent for much of 2026, marked by a coaching change, a wrist injury, a shock loss to Iva Jovic, and a slow rebuild toward her best tennis. Eala, by contrast, arrives having won a WTA title over a top 3 player, reached the second week of Wimbledon, and gone 7-1 across her last 8 matches. She is playing with house money and full belief, in front of a crowd that will be firmly behind her, against an opponent who is still finding her feet. The most likely path